Well, good morning. It's good to be here with you as always. As Father said, Christmas is 2 months away, but there's a lot of life to live in the next 2 months, not least of which Buckeye football is back. So it's an interesting time of year. And we have an election in 10 days. Don't worry, I'm not going to tell you how to vote. If for no other reason, I think like 30 to 50 million people have already cast their votes. Rather, I want to talk about what I consider to be an overarching issue, and that troubles me. And it has to do with our ability to live out the gospel. Jesus presents to us what is considered the great commandment, to love God with all our heart and to love our neighbor as ourself. And what troubles me is that we have misaligned our politics and our faith so badly that I'm afraid we're not capable of doing that right now. And when I say we, I'm not talking about the secular society, and I'm not even talking about religious people in general. I'm specifically talking about you and me, Catholics in the United States of America. But it always hasn't been like this. If you look back on the American Catholic experience, Catholics have had a prominent role in the political fabric of our country. And we're instrumental in forming workers' rights, health care, the promotion of peace, religious liberty, the ecology, as well as being the torchbearers for issues regarding marriage and family, including abortion and immigration, and more. And what you may or may not know is that since 1960, Catholics have been split 50-50 between the two political parties. And that's important because, you see, Catholics have had a long history of being active participants from both sides of the aisle and working for the common good and working to protect the dignity of the human person. Of course, it was messy at times and filled with what you would consider a healthy tension. But what has been evident was that their faith formed and drove their politics. But today we see the opposite. And for far too many Catholics, we have put our political identity before our religious identity. And the trouble with that is, when we put our political identity before our baptismal identity, we have to make, it's human nature, we have to make, and I'll even say justify, everything else, including our religion, to fit within that box. And that approach makes us incapable of loving our neighbor as ourself, because we no longer see a person, a brother, a sister. We see an ally or enemy based on political views. We've all seen this division gradually increase, and we've allowed these perceptions to make its way into our church and into our families. And in the last 4 years, it has reached a crisis level. And I don't want to play anymore. And I've come to believe that what is going on right now is absolutely diabolical. Because I've read, and so have you, the vitriol in social media, and have seen firsthand how it has ended friendships and divided families. It's important I say I don't stand here as someone who's arrived or pointing fingers, not in the least. I fully admit, and I'm ashamed to say, that there was a point in my life when I would say, I don't know how someone can consider themselves a Christian and be I'm not going to fill in the blank, because whatever I would say, there's somebody that has said the opposite. That's the interesting thing. And I came to realize just how wrong that was to say. And I also have become convinced that our country, and specifically Catholics, have been duped. We've been duped. First of all, as humans, because we forget that we all want the same thing. We all want to be healthy, happy, secure. We all want to love and to be loved. And how we go about achieving those goals is where we differ. But more so, as Catholics, we share a common baptism in Christ. And as disciples of Christ, and as Catholics who are called to form their conscience, we need to understand that Christian ideals supersede any political party. In other words, from a Catholic perspective, both parties have their strengths and both have their terrible, terrible failings. And so, with full acknowledgement that there are intrinsic evils that should always be denounced, when we, as professed followers of Jesus Christ, vilify and speak of others, whoever they may be, with hatred, not implied hatred, but actual hatred, and find it impossible to see any virtue in an opposing view, we marginalize ourselves and the other person, which impedes us from living out the great commandment. Man, I pray we can come to this awareness. So where am I going with all this? I'm saying for Catholics, we're better than that, because we were made in the image and likeness of God. And quite frankly, we should know better by our faith formation. But at the very least, we simply can't live there. It's unsustainable. And we should be active participants. Catholics should be active participants in ending the division. And in regards to our differing views with others, we have to dialogue. Father Metzger brought to our attention and talked about it in the bulletin last week, the encyclical from Pope Francis, Fraetelli, Tutti, I think I pronounced that right, which is about social friendship. And I've been going through it, but a friend of mine pointed out chapter 6, where the Pope says that dialogue is absolutely important. But he also says dialogue is often confused with paralleled monologues. And he says that monologues engage no one, and their content is often self-serving and contradictory. And that in many cases, they attract attention by their sharp tone. Sounds like every political Facebook post we've ever read, doesn't it? Now, the Pope encourages dialogue because it leads to understanding, which leads to empathy, which leads to common ground and the common good. And that definitely puts us on the path to loving our neighbor as ourself. And in regards to voting, I'm not suggesting that it's pointless to vote just because neither party fully represents the Catholic or Christian ideals. Voting is a moral act. You've probably heard or read about the church teaching on faithful citizenship. Faithful citizenship is based on a call to form our conscience. And the church wants to have a key role in helping us form our conscience. And before you go down a path of the church wants to manipulate, it doesn't. Think of the church in the terms of mother church. A mother who nourishes and teaches, and of course wants to have an impact on their children's lives. That's where the church is coming from. But the church is not going to tell us how to vote. We should absolutely, by forming our conscience, absolutely wrestle with the issues, and then take the moral responsibility for casting our vote, followed by raising our voice when necessary in civil and public dialogue. Sometimes when you feel something so deep, you struggle to find the words. So I want to acknowledge and thank Mark Huddy, who's the Episcopal Director for Social Concerns and Catholic Charities, an absolute treasure to our diocese and a personal friend. He helped me articulate my thoughts and what's been stirring inside of me. And please know I'm not trying to solve our issues in a 10-minute homily. And I'm not even asking you to agree with everything I'm saying. My goal is to get us to think about where this division takes us and join me in ending it within our church and definitely within our families. You know, Jesus says in the Gospel of Mark, a house divided against itself cannot stand. And if we stay on this path, it just doesn't end well. Finally, I've been emphasizing how this affects Catholics, and there's a reason for that. It's because we as Catholics are the ones that I believe are best suited to be agents of change. It's we Catholics that can change the culture. Think about it. 1 in 4 people in the United States are Catholic. And statistics tell us that 85% of those consider their faith to be somewhat or very important to their lives. So if that's the case, then we have to keep in mind the most basic Catholic belief, that we believe in the inherent worth of every person on earth. And that embodies very well the great commandment. So let us love thy neighbor, which means to wish the best for them. Let us love thy neighbor, especially when they don't agree with us. Let us love thy neighbor even when they do something against our principles. And please, over the next 10 days, let us love thy neighbor even when they have a sign in their yard that is different than the sign in ours.